Here's a number that should make you stop. The top 1% of American households now own 31.7% of all the wealth in the United States. That is the highest share ever recorded since the Federal Reserve began tracking in 1989. And here's the number on the other side. The bottom 50% of Americans, half the entire country, collectively own just 2.5% of the total wealth. Let that sit for a moment. Half the population, 2.5% of the wealth. Now, this video is not about politics. It is not about blaming anyone or waiting for a system to fix itself. Because here is what I know about wealth. The people who build it do not wait. They do not blame. They do not hope the environment changes in their favor. They do something specific. They think differently. They behave differently. And because of that, they end up in a completely different financial position than the people around them who earn similar incomes, live in similar places, and have similar opportunities. In this video, we are going to look honestly at why most people never build wealth, the real reasons, not the comfortable ones, and exactly what being different actually looks like. Let's go. The way most people make money follows one model. You show up, you work, you get paid, you stop working, the money stops. This is called trading time for money, and there is nothing wrong with it as a starting point. Almost everyone starts here. The problem is when it becomes the only model, forever, because time is finite. There are only so many hours in a day, only so many years of peak earning capacity in a career. If money only comes when you are actively producing it and stops when you stop, then your total lifetime wealth is permanently capped by the number of hours you can physically work. The people who build serious wealth at some point change the equation. They stop only trading time for money and start building things that generate income whether they are working or not. Investments, assets, systems, things that produce value while they sleep. Now, before this sounds like an advertisement for passive income, let me be clear. This shift does not happen overnight. It does not require quitting your job tomorrow. For most people, it starts small. Investing a portion of a paycheck into an index fund every month, building a savings account that earns returns. Over time, reinvesting those returns. The math of this is slow at first, almost invisible. Then it accelerates. A single $500 investment in a broad stock market index fund, left untouched for 30 years at a historical average annual return of around 10%, becomes approximately $8,700 without you doing anything after the initial decision. Now imagine doing that every month for 30 years. The numbers become life-changing, not because of any single dramatic move, but because of the compounding of small, consistent actions over a long period of time. The bottom 50% of Americans own almost no stocks. According to Gallup, 87% of stock-owning Americans live in households earning over $100,000. The people at the bottom of the wealth distribution are almost entirely excluded from the compounding engine that builds wealth at the top. Not always by choice, but the direction changes when the equation changes. And that starts with the first investment, however small. There is a concept in economics called present bias. It means humans naturally overvalue things that are available right now compared to things that are available in the future. You feel the pleasure of buying something today immediately and vividly. The cost of that decision, less money compounding over time, less financial security years from now, is abstract, distant, theoretical. And so, the brain consistently, reliably, predictably chooses the present over the future. The new phone over the investment, the vacation on credit over the boring savings transfer, the upgrade now over the security later. This is not stupidity. It is biology. The human brain was not designed for long-term financial planning. It was designed for survival in the moment. And in the moment, the financial future does not feel real the way the present does. But here is what that bias costs in practice. Someone who spends an extra $200 a month on lifestyle upgrades, things that could instead be invested, over 30 years at a 10% average annual return, gives up approximately $452,000. Nearly $500,000, in exchange for monthly upgrades that, because of hedonic adaptation, stopped feeling like upgrades within weeks of getting them. The trade is extraordinarily bad in hindsight. In the moment, it feels completely reasonable. This is why the people who build wealth are not necessarily the ones who earn the most. They are the ones who have trained themselves to feel the future as vividly as they feel the present. Who can hold the image of what $200 a month invested for 30 years becomes, and let that image compete with the immediate pull of what the $200 could buy today? That is a skill, not a personality trait, not something you are born with or without. It is a practiced ability to delay gratification, not forever, not in everything, but consistently enough that the gap between income and spending stays open. And in that gap, wealth accumulates. Most people never develop this skill because nobody teaches it. The marketing industry spends billions making the present feel irresistible. Nobody spends a dollar making the future feel real. Now you know the asymmetry. That changes things. Ask most people why they are not investing, and you will hear some version of one of these answers. I do not have enough money to start. The market is too risky. I do not understand it. I am waiting for the right time. I tried once and lost money. I will start when things calm down. Every one of these answers is fear wearing a practical disguise. The fear of losing money is real and it is powerful. Research in behavioral finance consistently shows that the pain of a financial loss feels approximately twice as intense as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Losing $100 hurts roughly twice as much as winning $100 feels good. This asymmetry means that by default, the risk of losing keeps more people out of investing than the possibility of gaining pulls them in. The math clearly favors investing over time. The emotion clearly resists it. And the result is that huge numbers of people keep their money in savings accounts earning 1% or 2% per year. Technically safe, emotionally comfortable. While inflation running at 3% quietly erodes their purchasing power every single year. They feel safe. They are actually losing ground. The market is not without risk. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. The markets drop, sometimes significantly. 2008 happened, 2020 happened, drawdowns are real. But here is what the data says about long-term investing in a diversified index fund. Over any 20-year period in the history of the US stock market, the market has never produced a negative return. Not once. The short-term volatility is real. The long-term direction has been consistently upward. The people who build wealth are not fearless. They feel the same anxiety in a market downturn. They just understand that the long-term math is on their side, and they stay in the game anyway. Waiting for the right time to invest is one of the most expensive forms of caution in existence. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today, with whatever amount is available. Because time in the market is the engine, and every year of waiting is an engine that never ran. There is a powerful social force that quietly shapes most financial decisions, and almost nobody talks about it directly. The people around you set your financial normal. If everyone in your social circle spends their bonus on a holiday, it feels natural to spend yours the same way. If your colleagues all drive a certain type of car, driving something significantly less feels like falling behind. If the neighborhood you live in has certain expectations about lifestyle, meeting those expectations absorbs money that could have built wealth instead. None of this is a conscious conspiracy. It is just how social norms work. We take cues from the people around us. We calibrate what is appropriate, what is expected, what is normal, based on what we see. And then we spend accordingly. The problem is that the financial norm in most social groups is not wealth-building behavior. It is consumption. It is keeping up. It is spending at the level of your income or beyond it. Because that is what most people do. And most people never build significant wealth. The people who do build wealth are, almost by definition, doing something different from the crowd. Not dramatically different in every area of life, but financially. They are making different choices than most people around them. And those choices are often invisible, which is exactly the point. They are not saving visibly. They are not announcing their investment decisions. They are simply, quietly, not spending on the things that look important to everyone else. And they are putting that money somewhere it compounds. The wealth inequality data makes this structural challenge visible. The top 1% now hold more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. That gap has widened consistently for decades. And a significant part of why it widens is that one group consistently invests in assets that appreciate, while the other consistently spends on things that depreciate. The crowd leads to the average outcome. Being different leads somewhere else. Here is one of the most practical and underrated reasons most people never build wealth. They rely on willpower and intention instead of systems. Every month, they intend to invest. They plan to save. They mean to put money aside. And then life happens. The unexpected expense, the social obligation, the month that ran short, the investment that got pushed to next month, which became the month after that, which became never. Intention-based wealth building fails because it requires the right decision to be made at the right moment, every single month, for decades. Under changing circumstances, changing moods, changing pressures. That is an unrealistic demand on any human being. The people who actually build wealth automate it. The investment happens on the same day as the paycheck, before the money is seen, categorized, or spent on something else. The decision was made once, how much, where, when, and the system executes it without requiring any further willpower or attention. This is not a small difference. It is the entire difference for most people. Studies consistently show that participation in retirement savings programs increases dramatically when enrollment is automatic versus when it requires active sign-up. The same behavior, the same people. The only change is whether they have to choose to do it or have to choose to stop it. Default behavior determines outcomes. And the default for most people, without automation, is spending everything available. Changing the default is a 5-minute task for most people with access to a bank account. Set up an automatic transfer to an investment or savings account on payday, even a small amount. The amount matters less than the system, and the system matters more than any individual decision. One setup, decades of impact. Everything we have covered so far is the diagnosis. Let's make the prescription specific. Being different does not mean being radical. It does not mean living with nothing, avoiding all enjoyment, or making dramatic sacrifices. The people who build wealth still spend money. They still live their lives. They just do it within a framework that ensures wealth is building in the background, automatically, consistently, over time. Here is what that framework looks like in practice. First, change the equation as early as possible, even before you feel ready, even with a small amount. Open an investment account. Put $25 in it. The amount is almost irrelevant at the start. What you are doing is establishing the habit, the account, and the psychology. The amounts grow. The habit stays. Second, automate the investment before the spending. On every payday, before any discretionary spending happens, a fixed amount moves automatically into that investment account. You live on what remains, not the other way around. Third, ignore the noise. The market will drop. Headlines will be terrifying. People around you will panic. The research on long-term investing is clear. The people who stay in through volatility significantly outperform the people who react and exit. Your job during a market downturn is to do nothing. Possibly to invest more, not to sell. Fourth, widen the gap. Wealth builds in the space between what you earn and what you spend. Every deliberate choice to spend less on things that do not genuinely improve your life is a widening of that gap. Not forever, not in everything, but consistently enough that the gap stays open and the investing continues. Fifth, stop measuring your financial progress by your income. Start measuring it by your net worth. Assets minus liabilities, updated monthly. If that number is growing, the strategy is working. If it is flat despite rising income, something in the system needs adjusting. These 5 behaviors are not secret. They are not complicated, but they are different from what most people around you are doing. And that difference, compounded over decades, produces completely different outcomes. The bottom 50% of Americans own 2.5% of the country's wealth. That is not a fixed law of nature. That is the current outcome of current behaviors, current systems, and current norms. The people who end up on the other side of that number are not necessarily smarter. They are not necessarily luckier. They are not necessarily born into advantage. Many of them started with nothing and built something slowly, quietly, over time, by doing things differently than the people around them. They changed the equation. They delayed gratification. They invested through fear. They ignored the crowd. They automated the behavior instead of relying on willpower. None of that is beyond you. None of it requires a perfect income or a perfect start. It requires a decision made today about what kind of financial future you are building and what you are willing to do differently to get there. The difference starts now. See you in the next one.